Hey, so I practiced connecting with people who I practiced connecting with people and being and behaving in a way which would model the way that it seems that Jesus would want me to model. So instead of just looking at the way people are being and complaining about the way they are being, I attempt to embody the right way of being. And by doing that, I got connected to a new YouTube channel, which I will link to in the description. A different person and a little bit different community. And I'm not aware of the community. I've only interacted with like a few characters, but one of the characters was goes by the name Kelly, and Kelly was very nice, very welcoming. He made me feel more welcoming yeah, I've just never felt so welcomed when on the internet. And I know that might be my fault as well. I'm not blaming anyone who I've ever met in the past. It's just, but yeah, so it caught my, Kelly helped catch my interest. So I'm in a new Discord server. And then, their leader teacher, dropped an image, and I'm reading over the image, and I'm just, I came up here because I was going to do Bible study, but I checked out this community, checked out what their leader teacher has to say. And so, I'm going to, or his leader teacher didn't say, the leader teacher didn't say anything, he just shared an image, so I don't even know what the leader teacher thinks, right? So I noticed that I made a mistake there. I assumed that because the leader teacher shared it, that the leader teacher supports what the creator of the original thinks. So I just caught that. It's interesting. So I'm going to flip over to the thing that was shared by the leader teacher. So let's transition. Boom. So this thing says model of self, and I just noticed while I was speaking this copyright 1996 by Kevin Everett Fitzmaurice. And so I don't know if the leader teacher in this community agrees with Kevin, but I'm responding to Kevin, or the 1996 version of Kevin who created this thing. But it was interesting. There's this idea of a container or a vessel. I've considered that as well, that we are vessels, we are temples, for example. And then inside the container, this is like the phenomenological experience, and there's thoughts, sensations, feelings, images. And the words say here, identifying with these creates the delusion known as ego. And then I'll come back to all this. I'm just covering it as a whole. So there's the inside the container of the vessel, and there's the outside of the container of the vessel. And so there's, on the right, there's this reality, nature, universe, openness, source, spirit. Identifying with these results in the creation of a spiritual ego. And then the Kevin has on the other side, on the left, this outside the container roles, titles, behaviors, experiences, people's opinions, and identifying with these results in the creation of a worldly ego. And then there's this square here that says identity, self-consciousness, 3 choices. You can identify with, be aware of self as 1, the container, 2, what is inside the container, 3, what is outside the container. And then at the bottom is this section that says self as container. And it says identifying with and being conscious of self as only the container results in a return to your true nature, to your true self, to your natural self, to a childlike state of humility, wonder, and bliss. And so there's Kevin is, it seems like Kevin is trying to point at what is good and what is very good. And I have to say, what arose in me was a few things. So first of all, like, it seemed static, like this vessel container thing that we are. It seems a little too static, like, because it's like it's living, it's moving. And so anytime you try to draw a picture that does not move, that just seems like a bad representation. It's off, right? And then there's this, there's relationship. Like, so you have things and then you have the in between the things. And that's important as well. And so, you know, and then what arose within me is this state of being in which I realize my relationship to everything. And it's like this point in time that has just all the connections from the past and all the possibilities of future, and then here I am and here we are, and it's moving and changing like a tree and roots, and we're doing it. It's alive, and it can produce. So he says something about humility. Man, that produces some humility when you see yourself like that you are interconnected to everything that has happened in the past, and that is humbling. And then there's you're also connected to so many possibilities in the future. It's like, man, there's some hope and some wonder, some mystery. Man, that's exciting. You know, this thing, bliss. What is this bliss? So for a long time, I practiced emptying myself in order to accomplish some mental state of equanimity, of just being empty. And it's very interesting trying to describe the phenomenological conscious experience, because we use words, but just because I use a word does not mean that you have shared the same phenomenological experience. And just because someone else uses the word doesn't mean that, you know, it's like, how do we really know that we have shared the same phenomenological experience? And how can we make a claim to have tasted the ultimate phenomenological experience, because we only have the history of experiences we have experienced to compare with. I'll bring up this phenomenon of being a child and feeling like, you know, you're in a car ride, you're a child, and you're like, are we there yet? And it's just taking forever. And then now I'm 40 years old, and it's like these things are just whoop, whoop, whoop. It seems like time is passing a lot faster, and it's because our experience of time is relative to all of our previous experiences. And so for a 4-year-old, they have 4 years of experience, and so the passage of 1 minute, you can take 1 minute and look at it as a ratio to the 4 years, and it's that 1 minute is quite large as a ratio. But when you're 40 years old, it's 10 times as small. I think my math might be okay there. And so 1 minute passes 10 times faster for the 40-year-old compared with the 4-year-old. And we only have our experience to judge the now, to be discerning. So, you know, I come at all this with some skepticism. Like within me, it's like, does Kevin Has Kevin tasted a phenomenological experience that goes beyond the experience that I've tasted? Or what about Jesus? Has he tasted what Jesus tasted? So I don't want to discount what Kevin's pointing at, because we take steps along a path, and I like to believe there's always more. So yeah, I would be cautious about upholding a model as the best, but models are useful. And so I think the point here would be that he's claiming that identifying as the container is better than identifying as the dad, the mom, whatever you do to make your money, and whatever other people think about you, or identifying as a Caucasian male, or identifying, my name, they gave me a name called Gavin. Do I identify as a Gavin? And so there is a freedom in being able to break from those identities. I do think that Christianity and Jesus' teachings offer something like this being born again. And so for a person to get to a place where they're ready to be born again, to take on a new identity, that's a big step. And maybe, is it a step in the direction which will bring about the highest phenomenological experience possible, or the greatest phenomenological experience possible? Well, maybe. But I think a lack of willingness to take on the new identity will prevent the possibility of moving into a new phenomenological experience, a better or worse phenomenological experience. So, I think it could be dangerous, but it can also, I have the faith of the mustard seed that it can be very good. And this is where I've leaned on Jesus, and it has seemed to work. And so that's my king, the one that I'm going to encourage people to try and know and obey, because I've done things like this in the past, and so yeah, I'm not saying that there's no good fruit here, but I am saying that it's inherently lacking for the reasons I've mentioned. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. Thank you for your time. Maybe I can show my face and say bye-bye. There's a face. Bye-bye.